We've been taught that aging means narrowing, less ambition, less visibility, less appetite for change. This episode challenges that idea. I'm joined by pro-aging advocate Ande Lyons to unpack why so many women pull back in midlife, even when they still have energy, ideas, and desires, and how to move forward without pressure to reinvent or even start over again. This is a conversation for women who feel capable, curious, and are not finished but aren't sure how to think about what comes next yet. This is the show for midlife women who want to stop second guessing and start feeling strong, focused, and fully themselves. I am Heike Yates, a midlife fitness expert and mindset coach. On the Pursue Your Spark podcast, I share simple, no-fluff strategies for movement, mindset, and nutrition so that you can stop spinning your wheels and start showing up with strength and confidence. Because thriving in midlife doesn't start with perfection. It starts with one bold step. Strong, confident, fully you. That's how we do midlife. Ande, I am so excited that you're here with us today. Welcome to the Pursue Your Spark, and I've been looking forward to our conversation today.
Heike, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to chat with you and edutain your listeners and talk about pro-aging. It's a wonderful topic to dive into.
Absolutely. You talk about not being caged by your age. What is the most ageist belief that you once carried, and what changed when you let go of it?
I mean, I've got a few ties in there. Being too old to do something. Being afraid to age out loud and proud. I would say those are the two top contenders for being caged by my age. And of course, I'm a boomer. I'm 69 today. But when I came out with my age, I was 66 years old. I had been in the startup ecosystem for a long time. I'm a 4 times founder. And I had a monthly pitch event for founders here in Boston. And I'm surrounded by all these young folks, right? And a real intergenerational group. But they all thought I was in my early 50s. And I was afraid to tell them that I was a good 15 years older than that, because I was afraid they wouldn't take me seriously. And it was further validated because during the pitch events where we'd have 5 founders had 99 seconds to pitch their value prop to a big audience, and then they had investors and mentors who would judge their pitches. And I often heard people say, you know, you need to explain your business as if you were telling your grandma. And I would jump out of my seat practically going, gendered ageism. And why isn't it ever grandpa?
What was the cost of holding on to that belief in the first place? Pick one of them.
Well, limiting. So if you sit there and say, oh, you know, I should have done that in my 40s or in my 30s, that's a younger person's game. In fact, when I turned 50, that's what I said to myself. Well, my entrepreneurship days are over. That's a young person's game. Well, between 50 and 66, I had 2 more businesses. So no, it's not a young person's game. But we often have indoctrinated beliefs because in my age group, we were raised with people who were really old at 65. I mean, they were really done. They had been beat up by life. They had the cardigan, sweater, the stooped shoulders, canes. They weren't out pursuing anything. And so whether we want to accept that or not, that indoctrinated, sometimes unconscious bias we have internalized over the years, not to mention Hollywood and all the movies and the TV shows and how they portray older people. You take that on and you start saying, yeah, you know, I'm supposed to, when the clock strikes midnight on a milestone age like 65, I'm supposed to start stepping back. You know, there's a rule that's happening. I'm supposed to withdraw from the stage. And I always like to say, don't shrink with age, take center stage.
What was the first thing you did differently once you let go of that belief? that held you back? What is the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, I started to reframe what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was happily in the startup world. But once I started aging out loud, and I came out when I was 66 with a post on LinkedIn called Don't Be Caged by Your Age. And I talked about ageism in the tech world, and especially and specifically in gendered ageism. But it went viral, and the comments in there were enlightening. And that's for me when I shifted from, I don't want to mentor startup founders anymore. I want to talk about how people are caged by their age, how they stop and believe that they're too old to continue. So for me, because, I knew I was never going to retire. I knew I was, as an entrepreneur, working is part of living.
What does retirement even look like, right? What would that look like for us at our ages? And I'm 64. What would that look like? I'm already doing that.
Yeah. Are you going to go down and live on the Cape? Or are you going to move to Florida or Arizona? What are you talking about?
Yep.
And it really can block you in. And also, I honor people who worked for the last 40 years and they just want to take a break. But what we know is that after if they have the money, they've traveled the world or played enough golf games or mahjong or whatever, pickleball, they're still waking up going, well, what now? And here's the thing we have to remember is that if you make it to 65, highly likely you're going to make it to 90. That's 25 years. If you look back at what you were doing between 40 and 65, look at all the things you did then. Why can't you be doing all of those things from 65 to 90? Who says?
Which brings me to my question that takes us back. You said you had a pivotal moment nearly 40 years ago that changed your life. Can you take us back to that moment and what doubts or fears you had to push through 40 years ago?
Oh, 40 years ago. Well, I did not go to college. I went and had my Wonder Bread years out in the world. Very high risk, survived. Thank you, God, I'm alive. So at 25, I went to secretarial school, Catherine Gibbs, and I went to work with outside the door of entrepreneurs, which was really fun. And I learned a lot. And in the process, I went to night school here at Northeastern in Boston and started building my undergraduate degree. And in 86, I learned about an MBA program that Simmons College had for women. And they accepted a very, very few candidates that did not have an undergraduate degree. And that was so enlightening to me because I really wanted to get going. And I knew that I could not ever do well on standardized tests. I'm a complete failure and I'm a smarty pants, but I go and do those, fill in the bubble of those 4 questions, forget it. And so not once, but twice they told me we never take students with GMAT scores that low, the graduate to get in. And I would hold out the trash bag and put it in there. But I knew that was going to be their answer. So ahead of time, I did several things to shore up. And this is important because sometimes we have to shore ourselves up. We have to take steps to build up the knowledge base we need in order to do what we want to do. And I went to school 4 nights a week for 4 hours. I took accounting at 3 semesters in one and expository writing. So I could prove that I had the critical thinking and capability and the writing capability to do the curriculum of an MBA program. And then I thought, okay, I did that, got A's in both of those. And I thought, well, I better really shore it up now and take a statistics class. Oh my gosh. I was halfway through that statistics class with a 74 as a grade when I received my acceptance letter from Simmons School of Management saying, provided you get a B+ or better in that statistics course you're in, you're in. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to do statistics to figure that out, right? And so I paid my professor to tutor me. And I said, I have to nail this. And I have to get a certain level on the final. And I need to have enough class participation in order to meet that goal. And I ended up getting that B plus and I got in. And so that was pivotal getting in, especially having never gone to full-time school. And I didn't go full-time because they knew they had the nighttime curriculum or they had the daytime because they knew women had children, parents they were taking care of, full-time jobs, et cetera. They were really honoring of women in the workplace trying to earn their degrees. And so I'm tootling along with a perception about myself that I'm just this creative, enthusiastic person in life. And I'm starting to fail miserably in operations. And this is the pivotal moment that changed my life. And so I had to go meet with my operations professor. And I said, well, professor, I'm just, that right brain gal and whatever. And he said to me, my formal name, Andrea, you have one of the strongest left brains I have ever met. No one has taught you how to use it. And I was like, really? He says, yes, you're logical, you're strategic, you're numbers oriented, you're data oriented, but no one has taught you how to use it. Let me do that for you. And it was almost like, a matrix moment where and I had a completely different impression of myself. And I stepped fully into who I really am. I had,
Nice.
all those years. And to me, that was pivotal in how I went forward in life.
Now, somebody may feel intimidated of what you've built and said, wow, oh my goodness, I could never do that. But I think that's not the point of what you have achieved, not to take away from your achievements, but that it is possible, that you have to believe in yourself and the things that you discover along the way. And you had a mentor who looked at you and said, what are you smoking? No, you are smart. Everybody just said, oh, no. Like you just said, we're dumbed down. And when I grew up, I was always told I'm bad with math, always. I'm still not the greatest champion, but I have respect for numbers. But I was always told that I'm too dumb to go to higher education, just like you. I have never gone to college. And that I can not measure up to anything because I didn't know, air quotes, my numbers until my husband of now 12 years, going on 14, knowing each other, dating. He said, you're one of the smartest people I know.
There you go.
He says, if you need a calculator, here's a calculator, add the numbers up, do your divisions. That's not taking away from your self-worth and the things that you're really good at.
A version of ourselves. And I'm sure you do that with a lot of your clients too. You see what they can become.
The potential, there's the potential. And now you lay out the potential. Now it's time to do something with it. And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It can be the smallest things that I also write about in my book, Pursue Your Spark, about. It's not the biggest thing that you do, the most amazing thing that you could think of, but the things that move the needle.
The important thing is that you understand the problem that you're solving, the folks that you're solving it for, and their willingness to pay for your solution. Those are the key things. And you've got to figure that out. And sometimes when you get into launching your business, you find out they want something completely different. Then you provide that. Wonderful. But a lot of times you don't know until you get started.
Do you feel isolated, worn out, and disconnected from the life you used to enjoy? Maybe your friends invite you to go hiking or play pickleball, and you say no, not because you don't want to go, but because you know you won't be able to keep up. You watch their lives move forward while you quietly sit it out, feeling embarrassed by how much your body has changed. Maybe you feel a shift in your marriage. You're tired. You don't feel attractive. The energy and confidence aren't there, and intimacy doesn't feel the way it used to, even if you never talk about it out loud. Or maybe you love your grandchildren, but you hesitate to say yes to watching them because deep down, a whole weekend would be too much. Sometimes your daughter already sees that, and that can hurt in ways that are hard to explain. If any of this feels familiar, you don't have to figure it out alone. Send me an email and share a little bit about what you're experiencing. What's been frustrating, where you feel stuck, and what are you longing to change? I read every message personally, and my intention is to give you something useful you can implement right away. Email me at heike@heikeyates.com. This can be the beginning of a new chapter, one where your body supports the life you want rather than holding you back.
Until you get started. And so, yeah, I became unemployable in 1992 and haven't been employable since. And trust me, I've tried to get hired. I've done all the things. I didn't even get interviews, for crying out loud. And I was told by a good friend of mine, who was a real senior person in the HR world, she was, Andy, we don't hire this. And she took her finger and scrolled down my body. But I think it's because, I'm a CEO. So I'm sure they were like, yeah, where are we going to put her?
What surprised you about that going viral?
Well, what surprised
Maybe nothing.
No. What surprised? There was a lot of surprises. So the biggest surprise was how many people were grappling with ageism and how they were afraid, especially women, just to say their age out loud. Mm-hmm. They were grappling with, what do I do? I mean, I've worked so hard. I've proven myself. I've had all these accolades and now nobody wants me and I'm invisible. I also heard the other side of the story. Well, I retired and then I took up gardening and then I saw all these bees. And then I said, wow, I love bees. Maybe I should get some hives. Well, then all of a sudden I had all these hives. What am I going to do with the honey? And now I have a honey business. Pulling on threads like that, finding different ways to not retire, but rewire. But what I really found was that there were a lot of people struggling with this topic who were in my age group. But then there was this other underlying category, which I call the 40 and 50-year-olds who were nervous about, like, what if I don't get it right over this 20-year period, my only window of opportunity, because obviously after 60, ambition dies and nobody's going to hire me. And I said, well, I've got to address their concerns too, along with what do those of us who have reached and had the privilege of reaching this age and being alive to celebrate it, how can we talk about that? And then I had to check my own bias when a 90-year-old got into the LinkedIn comments and saying, yeah, I've got a new business idea I'm about to launch and I'm so excited about it. I'm doing this, that, and that. And I thought, what the heck are you doing on LinkedIn at 90? And I had to slap myself upside the head with my own ageism, right?
Yep, absolutely. We catch ourselves going, wait a minute, aren't you just going to chill out and do nothing? But no, our minds keep going. And, I'm currently taking a public speaker class that I want to hone in more on my public speaking. And there are women 35 to probably 75. And like you said, I had to catch myself and say, you're 75? What are you doing here? Why do you? I was like, no, this is great. This is moving our minds, thinking out loud, taking action in whatever it is that you want. So I find this really refreshing and amazing.
Humans need a purpose to get out of bed. And that retirement has been declared an epidemic costing societies billions by the World Health Organization, because people will retire and maybe they're financially set, but they're going to hit the couch because they can't and they don't know what to do. And nobody like you have been helping them figure out, well, how do I want to spark my purpose? How do I want to find fulfillment after I retire? So these are important questions that we need to start asking instead of saying, whoop, done. Clock struck midnight.
Your motto is self first. It's not selfish.
Right.
What did prioritizing yourself actually look like in real life? And what resistances did you face when you chose yourself?
Oh my gosh. I have to tell you, this is such an important thing that we have to remember. The beauty of aging, and especially this time of life, is you are so unshackled. It's just a whole level of liberation. And sidebar, the women I interview in their 70s and 80s, they're like, this is the best decade ever. So I see it especially for women, right? Woohoo! But for me, it was when, 10 years ago. So I was 59 and I made the decision to put myself first and leave my family of origin. They were literally had been killing me for most of my life. Now, this is a perfectly good family. It's not that anybody had substance abuse or sex abuse or anything like that. They could be on the cover of Town and Country with the horses and everything. It was just that I was tolerated my whole life and just never felt like I belonged. So I had children at that time. And to say goodbye to your family of origin is not something you talk about socially because everybody seems to have the attitude, they're family. You have to take it because they're family. Now, if a spouse or somebody else were treating them that way, they'd be like, get rid of that friendship or that relationship. But with the family, we're supposed to tolerate emotional abuse. And I just was sitting there going, it's either me or them. And I'm not going to play this game anymore. And it was the best decision I ever made. And so I often ask people, because you will hear, oh, that's so selfish. How can you take your aunts and uncles and grandparents away from your children? I didn't. They could keep that relationship going. They chose not to. And they proved me right. Nobody fought for me. I have 3 siblings and my 2 parents were alive at the time. And that was good for them. Yeah. So sometimes when you put yourself first, you're going to realize some very valuable lessons. And it's a great filter and it helps you be more discerning going forward.
Yeah, we had an episode earlier this year, Why Selfish is Self-Care. And that addresses that aspect too, that especially as women, we cannot be selfish because it has a bad connotation and people judge us for being selfish. So I like your way of phrasing is self first a lot.
Well, from the work you do, we're responsible for our happiness, okay? And for our own fulfillment. And thinking others are going to make us happy is wrong, but also they don't need that pressure. Okay. And you don't need the pressure in trying to make someone else happy. You can be thoughtful. You can be loving, but that person is responsible for their happiness. And I think that's the beauty of self first. And we asked our sons who are adulting now, what do they want from us? And they said, we just want you to take care of yourself and be happy. And, that's the responsibility and that's the self first, that self-care.
Yeah, you said earlier, a little bit touched on that as well, you're not retiring, you're rewiring. Take us back a little bit more specific, what that shift looked like for you and what can women in midlife take from that idea?
I think you have to do the work. You have to start exploring. You have to put your discoverer hat on and look at your lived experiences that have led you to where you are today. Where do you want to take those experiences? How do you want to serve the world? Who do you want to become? And there are just so many wonderful exercises that women can do to start pondering and sitting with those questions. It's not going to happen overnight. I came up with what was important to me in 2019, and it didn't actually start presenting itself until late 2023. It can be an evolution. It can be maybe not right now, but what can I do to start preparing for that? And I focused on how I wanted to feel. Some people might, I want to go to Italy and I want to do this and I want to take this course and I want to become a better public speaker. That's all wonderful. But at the end of the day, who are you after that? And who do you want to be and become? And so I like to focus on how I wanted to feel, which is I wanted to feel connected. I wanted to feel community. I wanted to feel celebration. I wanted to feel communication and collaboration. And of course, cash and currency. I was into the C's there. And so for me, as I started to explore that, I found that my work in the startup world was coming to an end. And it really came to like a boom, an abrupt end. And then I thought, well, what do I want to do? What have I really loved the most in everything I've done in my working life? And it was podcasting. And so I said, okay, I want to stay podcasting. I want to talk about it. Now, this Don't Be Caged by Your Age is my 6th podcast since 2012. And so I want to do that. I want to start shedding a light and start hearing from the thought leaders in this category, but also showcasing folks who have learned to thrive after 65. But I also want community. And at our age, we become a lot more discerning about who we spend our time with. And I checked out Meetup. I checked out Eventbrite to see what was going on. And I wasn't really seeing things that lit me up. And I thought, well, again, who do I love hanging out with? And it was podcasters. And so I said, okay, I am going to start. And I looked for a group of podcasters gathering. There were none. And I go to the annual event that I love for indie podcasters called PodFest, but there was nothing in between. You can get on virtual calls. And I said, no, I need in person. There's magic happens when you're able to look someone in the eye and have those side conversations that cannot happen on a Zoom call. Mm-hmm. And I thought, all right, I'm going to create, and I didn't want it just to be Massachusetts or Boston, right? I wanted a lot larger region. Mm-hmm. So I set up the New England Podcasters Group. You're going to hold an event. What happens if nobody shows up? That's our biggest fear, right? So I made sure I had someone who was going to speak that day. And then two more people who I knew were going to show up. So it'd be the four of us. No time wasted. That's a good meetup.
Yeah.
Well, it's been 15 to 25 people every single month ever since, and revolving. And now we have people coming in on Zoom as well. Because, getting from Southern Connecticut or Northern Maine or Vermont to where we are in Massachusetts to this meetup can be a little difficult. But more importantly, it was the intergenerational community, which I think is so important as we age. If we just hang out with our age group alone, we are not opening our hearts and our minds to other thoughts and other generations, innovation and energy and excitement. One, but two, I firmly believe the best way to dissolve ageism is to be comfortable being the oldest person in the room.
All right. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Pursue Your Spark isn't your average self-help book. It's a wake-up call you didn't know you needed, because midlife isn't about winding down. It's about reclaiming who you are. I break down the 5 traps that keep us stuck, like comparison, burnout, and self-doubt, and show you how to break free without flipping your life upside down. And the best part, 6 worksheets that make it real. You'll actually take action, build momentum, and stop second guessing yourself. If you're done shrinking and ready to spark something powerful, the link to grab your copy is waiting for you in the show notes. Go get it. You are worth it.
In the room.
Absolutely. Because midlife often brings fatigue, health scares, and self-doubt. What daily practices or mindset shifts keep you resilient and energized?
Well, I love journaling every morning, and it's really filled with a lot of gratitude. I'm so happy my body still works. Thank you. I'm so grateful it's a sunny day, or I'm so grateful that I'm healthy today. But also, it's a mindset. It's staying the observer. And that doesn't mean I don't think sometimes, oh my gosh, I've been with my darling man. He's my second husband for 40 years now. And, we start off the day with coffee and affirmations. But also, I think sometimes I can get caught up in the fear. What's going to happen, right? And then the other thing, the most important thing for aging well is your mindset. It's feeding the mind and doing new things and using positivity to help you stay positive moving forward in aging. But the second most important thing is moving your body. It is not a chore to move your body. It is a privilege. Also, equally important, and I believe it's the number one ingredient for longevity, is find community.
Yeah.
And I feel so blessed that I get to hug in real life. I call it Let's Hurl with these folks in person so that we can look at each other's eyes and feel that sense of we're uplifting each other. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
Oh, it definitely is. Now, some women fear it's too late to start something new. What's one bold step or simple step, I should say, because I'm always believing simple actions, step they can take tomorrow to prove to themselves they are not done yet.
Oh my gosh. Take on something new, learn a new tech, learn if you want to write a book, take a course in writing a book. There's just so many things that you can do. If there's something that you feel passionate about and you go, ooh, that really lights me up, do it. You may find out that you were wrong. And that's great because now you can rule out what you don't like. And now you have a better idea of what you do like. It could be something very, very simple. It could be even cooking a new meal or trying on new clothes. It can just be anything, getting out there, going on Meetup, going on Eventbrite, and going someplace and having, being the oldest person in that room and just seeing what's going on. It can be having dinner at a restaurant bar. And I interviewed the amazing Angel Cicerone, who talked about how to be intentional in dining solo, how to go out and position yourself the best place in the bar, what to avoid, and to also have that mindset that, no, I'm not a lonely older woman sitting at the bar. I'm out having a great time with the opportunity of maybe meeting some people and having some good conversations.
Yep. And that's definitely a different way of looking at it, rather from this perspective of half glass full, half glass empty kind of perspective. And I think that especially women, are afraid to take that step. They're afraid of what people think of them, how they react, how they might be treated when they take the step of the example. I'm going to sit at the bar at the restaurant and eat by myself because sitting at a table feels lonely. So I sit at the bar. And overcoming those steps can be a big hurdle for them, or for many of us as we get older, to say, do I even fit in here? Should I be, air quotes, should I be doing this? Shouldn't I just be like, stepping back? And I can only say no.
Right.
No.
And Angel moved to New York City at the age of 60, didn't know a soul. Now she had friends who had kids there, right? Adult children. And so she, met with them and they were kind to show her around. And, the first place that she lived in, Chelsea, wasn't a fit. So she ended up moving up to the Upper East Side where it was a better fit for her. But she took that chance and that risk. And there's a great woman out of New York City called Liz Friedman. She's in her early 80s. I shared a video of her saying, you got to go hard. This is no time to pull back. You got to go hard at this time of life. Take the risk. Mm-hmm. And boy, you can be up against those voices that, we're ashamed of you. You're embarrassing us. You're not embarrassing you. You're embarrassing us. So get intentional. What experience do you want to have? How do you want to feel? You want to feel the confidence that comes from trying something new.
Yeah. And the excitement.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I'm thinking more of. It's like, okay, we gotten over the fear. We're going out to that dance class that we've been wanting to do forever. And here we are and in the room, and we are clumsy. We don't know how to do the steps, and we're the new kid on the block.
Right.
And people kind of eye us because we're new and we always feel self-conscious. But it's like, what excitement. You're learning the first steps.
Here's something to remember too. I wrote a post on Reddit called Boomers Are Tech Legends, Not Tech Challenged.
Yep.
And that's a misperception that many women in midlife can have about themselves around technology. But when you think about how we went from analog to digital, right? From electric typewriters to these PCs, and everybody remembers those answering machines with the cassettes in them, all the things that we had to learn, from vinyl to streaming, from punch cards to iPads, from the list goes on. Here we are today. That brain that transitioned, boomers, Gen X, and older millennials that transitioned from sending a letter and picking up the phone to texting and emailing and learning everything about the internet, you can do anything with tech. Anything.
Yeah. Now, that brings me to my last question. SPARK stands for strategic, purposeful, authentic, resilient, and knowledgeable. Which one of those acronyms stands for you most or speaks most to your journey? And what's one of your tips to pursuing it boldly for my audience?
Resilience gets a bad rap. But, when you've been through something that you've had to pick yourself back up from and start all over again. And for some women, that can be pregnancies. And that right there, you were resilient if you had any miscarriages. That to me is what shows you how strong you really are and how to keep moving forward. You have the strength, you have the courage, you have the curiosity to find out what sparks your life, what can fuel your passion, your purpose, and your pocketbook. And to not let that your age and all the other indoctrinated beliefs keep you and prevent you from pursuing new dreams and opportunities, because guess what? You're still alive. The world needs you. There's a group of people, there's one person out there who you're going to impact by being willing to step out and pursue a dream, to be curious, to figure out what you want to do, who you want to become. You're going to have a ripple effect in someone's life by taking the time to figure that out and shaking in your boots, knees knocking, the whole 9 yards. You become unflappable. And that's what the resilience is. And that also is what makes you so employable. So if you're thinking you'd like to get a job somewhere, but they're not going to hire you, you have already gone through the tough times. You've figured out how to bring on new clients in 2001, 2009, back in the 90s, and some back in the 80s. You learned how to navigate really tough times. You are an ideal employee for many companies. They're seeing that they need that seasoned, unflappable person who knows what resilience is to help the youngins.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As this episode ends, you might be thinking, yes, this explains a lot, but it may also leave you with a question you can't quite shake. If nothing is actually wrong with you, if you still have energy and ideas, then why have you been holding back? When did you start deciding that certain things were no longer for you? And how would you even know if that was wisdom or something you absorbed without realizing it? That's where we're going to go next, because once you see where that decision happens, you recognize it immediately. Don't miss this episode.